Hello my friends, welcome to Creating with Jovi, and also welcome to Discoveries in Journal and Bookmaking. Today we are going to do the long stitch with a wraparound cover. So we are developing our skills as we go. I want to let you know in the very first video in this series I showed you guys all the tools and materials that you might need while getting into journal and bookmaking. The second video was a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. The third was a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. The fourth was a chain stitch. The fifth is called Perfect Binding, and it's a no-sew journal. After that we did the French link stitch, which is a really fun stitch to learn to do and to apply. I really enjoyed that. And so today we're doing the long stitch with a wraparound cover. And I want to go over real quick the materials that you will need to accomplish this task. You're going to need 49 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper. It can be writing paper or sketch paper. 2 sheets of 10 by 19 heavyweight fabric. If you don't have a sewing machine, I'm going to sew my journal front and back together. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can use 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac. I want to show you something else that I have that I do not recommend. I have Fabric Fusion. I don't recommend this. It takes a really long time to dry. If you want to use it and then you plan on leaving something overnight, that's fine. It works great and you can't pull it apart after. It really truly does bond. But if you're like me and you like to work and glue and be able to, get right to it, with these things there's hardly any dry time, but with this there is. So I don't recommend it if you don't want to leave something overnight to dry. So 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac, they're basically the same thing as far as I'm concerned. You can use that if you don't have a sewing machine. And then the other option is you can use heat bond or ultra hold to sew 2 pieces of fabric, iron 2 pieces of fabric together. You might want to cover the edge of your journal with something, and if you've watched my channel, you know that there's a lot of ways that you can do that. But also ones that I have never used before, actually. I have never used embroidery floss to weave around an edge, and I've also never used a double fold bias tape. But you can go ahead and use a liquid seam sealant, or again 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac. All of those will work perfectly fine. You may need 1-inch wide artist tape or painter's tape. They have a little more stick than washi tape, because washi tape, well, some does have a lot of stick, but some doesn't. So, but if you didn't have the other, you could try washi tape if you have it about 1 inch thick, and some of us do have that. You'll need a strip of stiff paper cut to 8.5 inches in length and 2 to 3 inches in width. I don't have mine pre-cut, or I would show that to you. Actually, is this one? Oh, this is 8, yeah. We do have one, I didn't realize. So 8.5 inches tall, and you can see here this one is almost 3 inches. So you're going to want it to be 2 to 3 inches wide. You'll want waxed linen thread, any gauge, and so I've mentioned to you guys before that I have a little bucket of them. I got the whole kit, the thread, the awl, and a needle, all together in one kit on Amazon, and I'll link that in my description box. You'll want a closure for your book, so you can use a snap button, Velcro, ribbon. I'm probably going to go with ribbon, although I did find that I have some little Velcro circles, so that could be an option for me today. You're going to want a bone folder, an ironing board, a flat iron, a rotary cutter, a ruler, your scissors, a non-smudge ink pen, your cutting mat, an awl, a needle, and today I don't know if I'll be using my straight needle or my curved needle, so I have them both ready. A stitch holder, but if you don't have that, you can use another needle. You will also want tweezers or needle nose pliers. So if you work with jewelry, you probably have needle nose pliers if you don't have a set of tweezers. And if this particular set of tweezers doesn't work for me, I'll just grab my needle nose pliers. And last but not least, your utility knife. Let's get started. All right, my friends, I've got 49 pieces of 8.5 by 11 pages here, and I have them stacked into 7 pages each. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 signatures. And we have 7 signatures with 7 pieces of paper. Okay, so pretty easy. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to take our signatures, our papers, and we're gonna go ahead and fold them in half. Now when you fold them in half, take your time doing this and go ahead and make sure to crease really good the center here, where the fold is what I should say. And you guys saw me use my scissors there, but if you have a bone folder, you can use that as well. Scissors are a little bit easier for me to hold. All right, so this is what I'm gonna do, and this is what you'll do is go ahead, fold all your papers in half, give them an extra bit of pressure. This this notebook or journal is not going to have any pockets or anything like that. This is a writing journal. And so you can see I've put a variety of papers in, but most of them are plain. Now that we've got a nice crisp crease in them, we're going to go ahead and put them, lay one on top of another. And this is our first signature. Now each signature, once you get it folded and it's ready to go, I want you to tap it down like this and then tap it in real good. And then now is a good time to, if you've got some edges that you want to cut out or cut down or cut off, now is the time that you can go ahead and do that. You can do it later when the journal is done, but I personally prefer to do it one signature at a time. Got my razor tool. If you need to put more effort into it, you can stand up and sort of use your body weight if you need to. Try to stay right up against the ruler if you can. You can see on this one, I moved away from it a little, so I went back and I got those little pieces. All right, one more go should get me through all the papers. Let's see, how did we do? That's good, they're not sticking out as far. It'll be nice and flush when we're ready to sew these in. My friends, go ahead and fold the rest of your signatures and I'll meet you back here on the table. All right, my friends, I've got 7 signatures all folded and ready to go. And I wanted to let you know that I have plain papers for the signatures. And then I also went ahead and used some decorative pages as well. Now we're going to go ahead and set these aside and start working on the cover. Now you're going to need 2 sheets of fabric, and they need to measure 10 inches by 19 inches. Stiff fabric would work great, but I don't really have any like thick felt or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and use this vintage sheet. And I think what I'm going to do to make it behave like it is stiff fabric, I'm going to use this burlap. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut both of these to size. And again, that's going to be 10 inches by 19 inches. All right, my friends, I want to show you what I've got going on here. This is the burlap that I have cut to the 10 by 19. Then I've got my 2 sheets of fabric also cut to 10 by 19. And then I have this fusible interfacing, and interfacing is used to stiffen fabric. Usually interfacing would be used on collars and maybe cuffs to like stiffen it. What I'm going to do is take each one of the fabric pieces, iron on the fusible interfacing on the wrong side, on the opposite side, not the good side, right? So that's going to go on the inside. And I'm going to do that to both sheets of this fabric. All right, my friends, I want to give you a little update before I get moving on to the next step. and I want to provide some clarification. So I'm using vintage cotton, very, very thin, okay? So the cotton is not stiff at all, of course. So I added the interfacing, which is the same as heat and bond. So I added that to the fabric. I don't know if you can tell, but I did. I ironed it on. And actually, I ended up using my Cricut heat press, but an iron is perfectly fine. I just felt like the heat press takes up so much space, I only had to like put it on like a few times and then it was done and on to the next sheet. But use what you have, okay? So I went ahead and I put it on here just to stiffen it a little bit, but you can see because it's such thin fabric, it doesn't stiffen it that much, but I'm still glad to have it on there because when I sandwich it, put these in between, gonna put this burlap in between, it'll help so that you don't feel the, see how this is so textural? With this on here, it smooths that out. The cotton won't be going down in it, and I really like that. So it gives it, I don't know, it just adds another thin layer, which I think is quite nice. Now I want to mention to you that if you just wanted to go get some fabric that you didn't have to worry about making it thicker and this and that and the other, just go ahead and grab some fabric that is 2 millimeters or 1/16 inch in width. All right, my friends, so now I'm gonna go ahead and take the fabric and I'm gonna sew it to the burlap. So I will stack these neatly on top of each other. And I'm gonna take these to my sewing machine and I'm gonna sew them together. And I will show you the results as soon as I'm done. All right, my friends, I got the pieces sewn together. So I want to show it to you. Here it is. I used a zigzag stitch. You can see here that the burlap is in the middle. And on the other side, we've got a green stitch. Oh, we have green and blue on both sides. I must have flipped the fabric over. That's funny. So I didn't go in a perfect rectangle. So what I did was I went across and I went down and then I snipped my thread and then I went to the top again because I didn't want it to get like a big buckle by the time it got down here. So I must have flipped it when I took the thing out, but that doesn't bother me at all. I don't think that that's a problem. I think it looks cute, so I'm not going to worry about that. All right, now the goal is that this piece now needs to be cut to be 9 inches by 18 inches. So remember when we started, it was 10 by 19. So basically that extra is left so that we can cut off these raw edges because we know that when we put fabrics together, they're not always perfect. So there's a little bit of leeway, 1/2 inch on each end or each side to remove so that everything measures up beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and use my mat here and I'm going to line it up to the, let's see, where do I want to go? I'm going to push all the material to 10 1/4 and I'm going to take it off at 10 and I want to make sure I line everything up so that it's straight. So I need to go find my ruler. I've lost my metal ruler, have no idea where it went and I was just using it the other day. All right, and now I'm going to grab my rotary tool. Now I don't have the best luck with my rotary tool. I don't know, it seems to me like it should be sharper, but that's okay. I'm going to give it another try. If this won't work, I'll just go ahead and use my box cutter. But let me give this a try. I've got this lined up at the 10, and all right, that cut through most of it, but there's a few pieces that just need a little bit of snipping, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. At least I can see where those are. All right, now let's see what we got for the other side. Okay, my friends, I marked it here. I counted another 6 inches. This is where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and use my rotary tool again. So this should be measuring out at 18 inches, which is fantastic. Then on each side, it needs to go down from 10 to 9. So let's go ahead. We know that we've got straight edges on the bottom here. I'm going to move this up so you can see it. We know we have straight edges on the bottom, so I want to go ahead and use that as our guide, and I'll use it right here. What does it need to be? It needs to be 9. Okay, so we're at 10, so we got a 1/2 inch that we can take off of each side. All right, so we've got this lined up here. We're going to make sure that's as perfect as we can get it, because I want this cover to be really nice if I can pull that off. Okay, and then we're going to just go ahead and fold that there so that I can see the lines. And we're going to go in at the 9.5 mark. I'll probably have a little difficulty cutting when I get up in here because that's, you know, doubled over. But we'll give it a go. Let's see how we've done. Yeah, I'll have to go in with scissors on that. Actually, I need to go back in and just even do the bottom. See how this thing is? So fussy. Now, what we're going to do is cut this side. Alright, so we've got this lined up. We're going to cut it at the 9 because ultimately that's what we want. Remember, we want a 9 by 18. Again, if you're using thicker fabric, this is moving along much more quickly for you because you can simply cut it at 9 by 18 and be done with it. So here we are, we got our 9 by 18 piece of fabric and we are ready for the next step. Now, the next thing that we want to address are your edges. And on something like this, it depends on the style that you're going for, okay? So some of you might like a little bit of a frayed edge. It looks a little textural, a little bit messy. Some of you might prefer a much cleaner edge. Now, if you really want to make it easy on yourself, you can use fray check around all of your edges if you want to keep it clean but you don't want to sew something on. Another thing you can do is hand sew. You can hand stitch something on here, and that's kind of a neat idea. You could use embroidery floss and it would show up really nicely. I am very, very tempted to do that on this project. So let me go see if I have some embroidery floss. And real quick, before I go check out my embroidery floss situation, I wanted to mention to you that if you want to keep your edges from fraying, and again, you don't want to, you know, mess around with anything decorative, you can always get some fray check and just put it right along the seam. It's got a nice point on it, so it's not messy. It's not going to go all over the place. So you just go along the seam and everything will glue really nicely together. And if I can't find some embroidery floss or a stitch that's easy enough for me, I'll go ahead and use this the rest of the way around, but I just wanted to at least show it to you so you knew that this was a great option if you needed it. All right, my friends, I really do want this to be a cool project. I want it to be special. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I'll do a blanket stitch around the edge of this whole thing. This will be the first time that I've ever done this stitch. I usually use my sewing machine for everything, and honestly, I could leave the sewing machine stuff there and use the fabric fusion or the fray check, sorry. But I just really want this to be kind of neat. So let's pull out some of our stuff here. And let's start by seeing if we have any colors that we think are going to work nicely. All right, my friends, so I really, really, really don't want to use this light purple on here. That's not the vibe I'm going for. So if I can use this, I would be so, so happy. So here's what I figured we would do is if I took this and I measured it out twice, okay, and that twice for each side, so let's do that again. And then one more time. Can you guys tell I'm all thumbs with this? Oh my gosh. Hold on, let me see if I can get this untangled. All right, my friends, I got it. I actually think I'm gonna have enough to be able to do use this color all the way around, but let's go ahead and measure and see what we think. We got 1, 2, we need to do 4 of them, 3, 4, and then we need to do 2 for each end. So let's just go pretend 1, 2, that would be one end. If we can get 2 more, then we know we are golden. So let's say we were starting here. Well, let's see, what do we got? 1, and then this is definitely 2. So we definitely have enough. So I'm going to go ahead and do this stitch all the way around. Again, it's my first time doing it, and it should be interesting, but I think it's going to add a really, really nice touch to this journal.
I agree.
All right, my friends, so you can see I have a pretty good sized needle here. I chose this one because the eye was big enough to get the embroidery floss through it. So I'm thinking there's an awful lot here, so I think if I can, I'm going to start with this edge here. And so I think if we go once, twice, I'll cut that, and then I can start a new line going across, because I'm afraid if I go with too much thread, then I'm going to end up in a hot mess. So here's to hoping that 2 lengths of this embroidery floss is enough for an end. If it is, then we'll know that for the rest of the project, which, you know, is great. I am going to go ahead and put a little knot here at the end so I don't pull it through all the way. I'll put it on the very, very end. I can always cut that off if I need to. All right, my friends, I also want to mention that if you really wanted to make a statement with it, you could use yarn. So I'm going to come in about a 1/2 inch. Whoops. I'm going to come in about a 1/2 inch, because I do want this to show. You know, if I don't go in a 1/2 inch, then you know, it just doesn't show up that much. So, as a matter of fact, I wonder if I should mark this so I stay in a straight line, right? Let's see here. Let's go here to this 1/2 inch, and I could mark it at the 8. Make sure I'm straight. Mark it at the 8. I don't want to mark it with anything permanent. Wonder if I could just crease it, or just maybe, how could I do this without truly marking it? I do have this pencil. You know what I'm going to do, you guys? Instead of drawing a straight line, I'm going to go ahead and mark. I know that this seems probably ridiculous to be so detailed about it, but I'm going to go ahead and mark it at every maybe 1/2 inch. So I'll do like a little dot there. We're almost there, and that should be just about the last one. I don't know how I'm gonna, well, then I can start going around the other side. So let's give this a go. We've got it marked. I should be able to stay in a straight line, and that should be great. Now, I'm not really positive about how to actually start this, but we are gonna wing it, my friends. Okay, so I know what we do is we come in through here, and we're going to pull this, and then there's this loop here, and I know that we're going to go through the loop and now pull, and now let's try that again. This is our starting point, and when we get to the place where we're done and we might want to embellish part of the journal. Oops, let's hold our loop. Don't want to forget, we're going to hold our loop. We're going to go through it. And then this goes right, should go like right along the top like that. What do you guys think about that? I mean, we can definitely see it. I think ultimately it's going to look pretty neat, and it'll be different. And it's definitely different than anything I have ever done before. So I'm pretty excited about it. The stitch goes pretty quick. You can see it goes fast once you get started. It's not complicated. There's not a lot to remember. You know, I think the big thing is just not knotting up our embroidery floss. Like I mentioned, you can use yarn if you want to. Yeah, look at that, it's coming along. So when I start the other ones, I'll try to figure out something better for the starting point, but you know I can always add a button there or something like that. I can add a little embellishment there. That's not going to be any problem at all. That's something to think about. But that's what we'll do at the very end is decide how we want to dress that up a little bit. So I think this is looking pretty cool. I won't do the whole thing on camera unless, I don't know, I mean, you know, my friend Carol at Recrafted by Carol, she has 2 channels and her other channel is Hand Stitching with Carol. And she does this kind of stuff all of the time. And I'm going to be very excited to share with her the fact that I went ahead and did some hand stitching. And hopefully she will get a kick out of that. But this is fun, you know, something different for me. And I'm glad to be exploring some new and wonderful techniques. I think that helps make our crafty life wonderful and rich, right, my friends? Oops, okay, so let's keep an eye on the opposite side. I think we're okay, but I'm going to have to go ahead and tighten this unless I'm going to have to undo it. Let's see, what do we got here? Oh, I think my needle went, well, hold on, no, I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I just need to pull it, like right here, and then pull this through here. Get that tightened up. We're getting there. Okay, we got it. Okay, so that's something that I've just learned in doing this new thing here, this hand stitching. So then we have to just make sure that we occasionally check both sides to be sure that everything is going straight and going the way that we want it to, and we didn't get, you know, didn't get ourselves knotted up on anything, okay? Keep on rolling. All right, so while I'm doing this, hopefully you understand the stitch. I'm going to go ahead and finish this stitch, and then I will come back and we'll do the next phase. Okay, my friends, before I start going around the other edge, I wanted to share something with you. So remember we did 2 lengths of embroidery floss for this end? It worked out great. This is exactly what I had left over. So I think 2 lengths, and then I might take just a little extra to make sure I don't have to struggle with tying something off, okay? All right, my friends, I wanted to share this with you. So you remember, I actually, to do the long side, I pulled 2 and about half, so about 2.5 lengths of this for the thread. But because there's more stitches, it's taking up more. So 2.5 is not enough for the long side. 2 was fine for the ends, but I think we have to do 3. So when I go to do this one, I'll do 3. Okay, so I just wanted to let you guys know that, kind of sharing some little tips with you as I go and as I learn things. Okay, my friends, I wanted to share with you the results of going around the whole thing with this blanket stitch. And I want to tell you that if you've never done the blanket stitch, I think it's a great stitch to start with. It was super easy to do, and I like the look that it has given here. It looks very textural and hands-on, and I really like that. I've got a little bit of thread left in case I want to, you know, do something on the cover or something when we get to that point. We'll see. I may not need it, but I've got a little bit left in case we decide to really get fancy with this thing. Now it's time to do a test fit with our signatures and our cover. Let's say this was here and this was here. That's what it would look like, and I like it. It fits. That was what we were trying to do, is we wanted to test it and make sure everything fit really nicely, and it does. And I seem to have moved my camera. I'm so sorry. So the test fit is good. It fits in there, and I think we're good to go to the next step. You are going to need 1-inch wide painter's tape or artist tape. Now I measured this, and it says it's 1 inch, but when I put my ruler up to it, to me it's about 1 centimeter shy, or 2 centimeters shy actually, of, look at that right there. So if I have it on this 2-inch line, it's a little bit shy, and I have a feeling, because we have 7 signatures, I'm gonna need all of the space on here that I can get. So the first thing we're gonna do is, let's go ahead, we're gonna put this down on clean surface. I need 10 inches of tape. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and overlap it, because I do not wanna shortchange myself with this situation. Even a few centimeters, if you don't have them and you need them, you'll regret not having them. So if you've got tape that you're going to use, I would suggest measuring it just to make sure that you're getting the full 1 inch. Okay, so we've got that. I have a little bit more than 10 inches. I can trim the ends later. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to want to get a pen that doesn't smudge, because we don't want the ink that's going to go on here to end up smudging into your book. This is a ballpoint pen. I should be okay. Yeah, I should be okay with this. Okay, my friends, I marked the ends of the tape that I'm going to basically ignore. I put a line at each one, so I've got 10 inches worth of tape here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to start marking dots on the edge of the tape, okay? And the first one is going to be at 1/2 inch. We're going to mark 1 1/4 inch, so that's going to be 1, and then 1/4 right here. Oops. I was marking my mat, not my, that's funny. The next one is going to be 1 1/2, which is right here. Make sure I'm in line with my dots on the mat too. The next one is going to be 4 3/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down here to 3/4. The next one is going to be 5 1/4. This is 5, and 1/4 is right here. The next is going to be 8 1/2. So we're going to go down here to 8 and then to the 1/2. The following is going to be 8 3/4. After that, we're going to do 9 1/2 inches. Whoops. So this is 9, and then here's the half mark right here. And now we're going to do the other side of the tape. So I'm going to go over these numbers with you one more time. We're going to do 1/2 inch. We're going to do 1 1/4. We're going to do 1 1/2. Next is going to be 4 3/4. So we're going down here to number 4, and then 3/4. 1, 2, 3/4 right here. And then it's going to be 5 1/4, and then it's going to be 8 1/2. 8 1/2, and then we're going to have 8 3/4, and then 9 1/2. All right, so we should have 8 lines starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we did that correctly. Now we're simply going to take our ruler. I'm going to move this down so I can see it and so you can see it. Actually, I'm going to turn it upside down so nothing's in my way. And I'm simply going to draw a line right across the tape at each point where there are dots. I'm going to put an X through my very top and very bottom line just so I know that those aren't ones that we are trying to be concerned about. Now we're going to draw vertical lines. Now we're going to draw vertical lines to mark where each signature will be shown. All right, now at the top and the bottom of the tape, we are going to mark 7 points, spaced 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters apart. Now my ruler's got the 1/8 inch and the millimeters, and I'm going to go ahead and do the millimeters because I'm not actually sure about the 1/8 inch thing. So I feel like for me it'll be easier to do the millimeters even though they are tiny. All right, so as mentioned, I'm going to do that at the top and the bottom. So this one where I drew the X, I'm going to go in probably just, well, yeah, maybe right there. I don't know. No, I'll come in a little further. I'll come into the 1/4 inch down from that. And I'm going to scoot my ruler over, and I'm going to go ahead and every 3 millimeters, I'm going to mark a point. Now these are tightly spaced, so just know that. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 8 of them. All right, my friends, I got the top marked, and what I did is I put some little dots on my ruler just to help me because it's such tiny spacing. So for me, I think that's going to be helpful. So I'm going to come in over here, and I'm going to line up my ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and make the dots at the same place that I did up at the top. And actually marking the ruler is quite helpful for being able to find those spaces again. They're just, like I said, they're just so tiny that I kept having to recount them, and I thought, you know what, it's just easier to mark them. So that's what I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're supposed to have 7 of them. Okay, so we have 7 at the top and 7 at the bottom. All right, basically now we are going to connect the dots. So we're going to put our ruler here. I'm going to turn it around to where the metal edge is. And I'm lining up the first dot on both sides, and we are just going to draw a nice line right down the ruler, connecting the dots. Okay, that's our first line. Now we're going to do that for each one. Take your time. If we can get this right the first time, we are saving ourselves a lot of time in the long run. All right, let's make sure we got them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got them. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is apply this tape to the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this up. Remember, I have 2 pieces of tape, so I want to make sure I get them both up together so we don't mess up any of our lines or anything like that. So here it comes. Now we're going to grab one of our signatures, and we're going to go ahead and place it here in the journal. This is just a guide of where we want to place our tape. I'm going to use my mat because it's got all these nice straight corners. So we're going to go ahead and line everything up really nicely on the mat. I'm going to put this over here. All right, so everything's nice and straight. Now I'm going to grab my tape, and I can go ahead and get this in, and I think I'll use the guide between 6 and 7, and that way I know also that I'm getting the tape on to the book straight. Before we go any further, I wanted to make sure, because I can't remember, I want to make sure to mention that you want to have your cover laying face down. Now you want to go ahead and remove your signature. And now we're going to go ahead and peel up our tape. And we are going to wrap this over the front and, or I should say the top and the bottom, okay? All right, now you need a clean piece of paper. And we're going to use the marks that we already made in our journal, on our journal cover. And we're going to mark this paper. Now if you have some stiff paper, that's even better. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half. That'll give it a little bit more stiffness and strength. All right, and And you know what, just so that I know I'm setting everything up properly, I'm lining up the bottom here. And as a matter of fact, what I might do is cut this off right at the top, and that way there won't be any confusion as to where this needs to go. And also, another good thing that you can do, guys, is in case you know you're moving things around and flip-flopping stuff, you can put a T for top and a B for bottom if you want to. I know sometimes, like if I toss this and I'm like, oh geez, and it does matter. It does make a difference, just so you know. All right, so we've got this lined up very nicely here, and we're going to go ahead and put a dot where each one of these lines are. All right, my friends, now it's time for you to grab your awl. We're going to move this out of the way. We are going to grab our signatures now. And now we're going to start poking holes in our signatures so that we can sew them. I want to make sure everything's flush. And I can see that my paper here is, because it's the same size as the cover, it's not the same size as my paper. So what I want to do is make sure that I've got this even, and then I'm going to mark it. And I'll only have to mark it once, and then the rest of it should go very smooth. So I'm putting it here in between these lines, and I've got about 1/4 inch on that end and about 1/4 inch on this end, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that. That way, every time I put it in a new signature, I can put it in the perfect spot and know that everything's going to line up really nicely. Okay, and then you don't have to mark it. You can just get your awl. You know what also I find to be helpful is we can take a clip so that this doesn't move. We can just clip it there and clip it here. That way it's going to stay in the same place. We don't have to worry about it shifting because we're kind of moving the paper around with our awl. So you can mark it if you want to, or you can just clip and then just go in with your awl. And you're just pushing it through, and you're not going to push it all the way. Like, you don't want to make the holes too big, but you do want to get them through all of the paper. All right, we have got those done. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this and do the same to the rest of the signatures. All right, so you guys go ahead and do that to the rest of them. You should have 7 signatures. Go ahead and get them prepped, get the holes put in them, and then we will begin sewing. How does that sound? My friends, it is time now to get prepared to go ahead and sew in the signatures. So what we need to do is we are going to lay the cover open on the desk with the front cover at the bottom. So I know I want this to be my front cover. So I'm laying this like this. Go ahead and grab your signatures and get them ready and put them near you with the spines facing you. Now it's time to choose our thread color, and I definitely want to use a color that will show up, that'll be really visible, because I think this stitch is going to be so pretty. This green, you know, goes really nicely with the leaves here, so I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and go with the green. Now we also need to get a needle, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this needle because I want one that's fine. If I wasn't going to use this one, I might use the same one that I did the blanket stitch with, but I'm going to give this one a go. And we know we're going to need our awl. Now we need to measure and cut our thread 8 times the length of the spine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm just going to do a few inches to grow on, just in case. I'm sure I won't need it, but. All right, on one end, we're going to take our thread and we're going to tie a double overhand knot right here on that end, okay? Now we're going to take the other end and we are going to push it through our needle and pull it 1 to 2 inches through. All right, we're going to grab our first signature and we are going to go ahead and pop it in here. This is the inside of the journal. And I want to line that up evenly. And then what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is sew from the inside out. We're going to start on the right hand side. Remember, there are 6 points on each signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this will be number 1 and this will be number 6. So if you hear me say hole 1, it's going to be this one. If you hear me say hole 3, it's going to be this one, etc. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get our needle through hole 6. We're starting on the inside and we're just going to push to the outside. Now I'm going to lay this here. I'm going to pull this through all the way to the knot. Okay, now we're going to flip this up and we're going to find our first intersection on the tape, which would be this one right here, which is hole number 6. And we're going to pop our needle through that. And I'm just going to turn this so it's comfortable for me and so I can sort of see what I'm doing here so I can get to the right spot. All right, we've got it. So I'm pushing my needle through and I'm going to pull this all the way. Be patient, it's pretty long. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pull it tight until we get this first signature where we want it. I'm going to open that up and make sure there's no slack going on in there. All right, that looks good. Okay, so we got the first stitch done. Okay, my friends, now I need you to pay attention to this next step. So we've taken our needle, we sewed it through the signature and then through the cover, okay? So now the thread is coming out on the outside. We want to pull our signature and cover together, and then so there's no shifting, you kind of want to hold this in place with your non-dominant hand, your non-sewing hand. And we're going to go back in through this hole, but we're not going into the signature, okay? So I've poked the needle through. Let's see if it went through. I think so. Yep, there it is. Okay, so I've got the needle through, okay? And then I'm going to pull the thread until there's a small loop on the outside. All right, now what we need to do is we've got to hold this loop. So I need to put what they call a loop holder there. It can be another needle. So I've got a nice big needle here. I'm going to go ahead and put that right there. Now I'm going to pull that tight, but you can see the needle is keeping it from going all the way through the hole. Now we're going to open this back up. Now we're going to go ahead and sew back through hole number 6 in our journal. I'm going to get that knot out of the way so I can get through there. I'm going to pull this thread all the way through. And now I'm going to go out through hole number 5. And to make sure I get the needle in the right place, I'm just going to pull the thread all the way through before I poke it through the actual fabric. There we go. Okay, that's looking good. Now, the proper place, if I line this up and everything is straight, and this is sitting straight, let's make sure it is, then if I poke through right here, it should be the right spot, but let's find out. Yeah, it's pretty darn close, so we're going to go with it. And I'm going to pull the thread all the way through again. Now we're going to sew in through hole number 4. We still have our needle over here holding this place. And I'm just going to turn this so you guys can see it. Now we're going to sew out through hole number 3. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and sew out the pages, pull the thread all the way, line everything up, and then go through the cover. I'm going to push through right here and take a look at it just with the very tip and just make sure I got the right spot. I did. That's great. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to go in through station number 2. And then out through station number 1. Okay, so this needle is still here, and this is what it looks like so far, my friends. Now it's time to sew in the next signature. So we're going to place this one in front of the first one, so it's going to go here. Okay, my friends? We're going to go through hole number 1, but at the next hole. So I've got a intersection right here, and I'm going to go ahead and poke through that. Now I'm going to go in through hole number 1 of this signature, the second signature, and we're going to follow the steps just like we did before. So it's going to be in 1, out 2, in 3, out 4, in 5, out 6. So you saw me do the first one. I'm going to continue on with this one. If I come up with anything interesting, I will turn the camera back on and let you guys know what that is, in case it's something I've learned along the way, or a mistake that I made, or something like that. I'll be sure to let you guys know. Better for you to learn from my mistakes than your own. All right, so I went into 1, out of 2, and now I'm going to set this straight, and I'm going to poke out and hope that I got it on the right spot. We'll poke through and have a look. So just do that. When you poke through, have a look. Make sure you've got it where you want it before you proceed. Yeah, and that it did it perfectly, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that through. All right, so I'll continue on. And yes, you are, in case you were wondering, you are sewing through the tape. The tape will get removed later, but you are sewing through the tape, so don't worry about that. Okay, my friends? Okay, my friends, here we are. We have sewn in through hole number 5. We're going to go out through hole number 6, and I wanted to pick up here because we're gonna connect with the thread that's being held, you know, that little loop that's being held by the other needle. So we're going to go ahead and pull this through. All right, now we're going to carefully remove this needle that is holding this loop in place. All right, we've removed that needle. Now we're going to grab this needle that has the thread on it, and we're going to go through that loop with our thread. And we're going to go ahead and pull all the way through. All right, so we've got 2 signatures sewn in now, and now would be a good time to check for tautness. I can see that my first one's pretty good. My second one needs to be a little tighter, so I'm just going to tug on it, and then tug here. And if I have to, I can come in here into the second one. Have a look at that, see how that looks. You want them tight, but you don't want them over tight. Yeah, I think that looks good. So every 2 signatures, you should go ahead and check and make sure there's nothing that's too loose in here, okay? Now it's time to go ahead and add our 3rd signature. So this one goes in front of the other 2. And we know that our needle is on the outside now. So it's time to go ahead and go in to the next hole, which is hole number 3. So I'm going to go ahead and push that through. For me, it's kind of hard to get a grip on these circular needles. I'm going to go ahead and move signatures 1 and 2 out of the way and push the needle up through the fabric, pulling that all the way through. Oops, got a knot. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, we're okay. Move signatures 1 and 2 out of the way, and this is going to go through hole number 1 of signature 3. And out through number 2. So on and so forth until we get to the other end. When we get to the other end, I will turn the camera back on and let you know where we go from there. All right, my friends. Now we have sewn out of hole number 1. And now we need to go ahead and do a kettle stitch. The reason to do a kettle stitch is because it locks the signatures together. So I'm going to hold this up like this, so far you can see the stitching that we have up here, the stitching down here. I'm sorry the green blends a little bit with the blue, but hopefully you can see it. And then here's where we are. We just came out of this hole here. So we're going to go ahead and go behind this first stitch. So we sewed behind this first stitch and we created a little loop right here. Now I'm going to go up under that loop and I'm going to pull my thread until it pulls it tight. And that is a kettle stitch. You want them tight, but you don't want to crank down on them too hard, okay? Now I'm going to continue on with the 4th signature. I'm going to grab that. We're putting it in front of these, right? We're going to put it right there. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to go in through 1, out through 2, in through 3, out through 4, in through 5, out through 6, and then we'll do another kettle stitch. All right, my friends, we are at the end of the line, and so we're going to go ahead and do a kettle stitch. So I'm going to go under the stitch prior, and we're going to leave a little knot. We're going to go up under that knot, and then we're going to pull it tight. We are ready for our 5th signature, and so before we get started on that, I'm going to go ahead and poke a hole right here and push this needle through. All right, bringing signature number 5 over, I pulled the thread through here. And now we're going to get started with the 5th signature. All right, so in through 1, out through 2, in through 3, out through 4, so on and so forth, and I'll meet you at the other end. All right, my friends, here we are. We are going to do another kettle stitch. So I'm going under the one prior, leaving that loop, going under the loop, and pulling it tight. There we go. Looking good, guys. All right, we are down to the 6th signature now, and we're going to continue on. Okay, my friends, for the final signature, which is signature number 7, I want you to spin your book around so that signature number 7 is on top and your spine is facing you. Okay, so mine is facing me. You are going to sew in to your first hole. You're going to sew out through your second hole. All right, so just so that I make sure that you can see it, we went in through the first, out through the second, right? Now we're going to bring our needle down behind all of the stitches. You can see here that there's a loop, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew up through that loop and pull everything tight. So we brought our needle down underneath all of these threads, and you can see there's a little loop here. So now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it right underneath that loop, and I'm going to pull that tight. Now I'm going to go underneath the stitches again. And there's another loop, so I'm going to go ahead, put my needle underneath that, and pull that tight as well. Really pretty, right? Now we're going to continue on with working on getting that signature sewed in. So we're going to sew in through signature 3 right here. I'm going to go through the cover first. Going to make sure I pull that tight. Yep, that looks good. All right, my friends, we sewed in through station number 3, and now we're going to go out through station number 4. And now we're going to sew in through station number 5. All right, number 5 is right up here. All right, we sewed out through station number 4. Now we're going to go ahead and do our gathering stitch. We're going to go under all of the previous stitches. We're going to pull this, and remember there's a little loop here, and we're going to come up underneath that loop and pull everything tight. Want to make sure it's centered. Okay, it looks beautiful. Now we're going to go under that again and back under this loop here. And pulling that tight, okay? Looking so good. I'm very, very happy. Now we're going to go ahead and sew in through station number 5. Now I'm going to go out through hole number 6. Now we're going to do another kettle stitch. So we're going to pull this tight, make sure all that feels good. It does. And to do our kettle stitch, we are going to go under the previous thread. You can see that there is a loop there, and we're going to go under that loop, and we're going to pull that tight. Now once we got that done, now we're going to sew back in through number 6 of the cover and the signature. On the inside, I'm going to secure the sewing by tying a double half hitch knot. A half hitch knot is a very nice way to finish and secure the sewing on the inside of a book or journal. So to do this, number 1, you need to make sure your thread is on the inside of the book, and ours is. So now we're going to take our needle and we're going to thread it underneath this stitch that's right here. And we've got our loop. You can see the loop here. And we're going to go ahead and thread this through the loop. And we're going to tighten that up. And for a little extra support, we're going to do one more knot, just like that. So we're going to go under. We have our nice loop here. We're going to go through our loop. And we're going to pull the tension towards us, because that's towards the sewing. That way we're not tearing any paper. Now we're going to cut the excess thread. And so remember earlier in the video, and I took that little extra in case we needed it. Look, we didn't need it at all. There's plenty of thread here. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. And I'm just going to snip this right here. There we go. Nice, neat, and tidy. Now we need to address the tape that is on the outside of this cover. So we're going to bring this over here. I'm going to go ahead and just open to that center signature there. Just hold it like this. The ends I can peel up. We'll start with that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. I'm going to get my smaller scissors though, because I want to get as close as I can. I'm going to go ahead and snip this one that's in the center because there's no stitching here in the center. And just loosen that up. I might gather my needle to assist here. Get up under there. Okay, so we got that up. Now we're just going to have to gingerly and patiently use some tweezers and scissors to remove, the rest of this tape. So I'm just going to start by getting up underneath of it, just loosening it up a little bit. All right, there it is with the tape removed. I want to tell you guys that took me probably, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes to remove the tape. You want to be careful. Use little scissors to snip away what you can, especially right at the lines where it's underneath there. Just, of course, don't snip your thread, but just be patient, take your time, and also get something up underneath of the tape, especially if you use the painter's tape like I used. It had a pretty good stick to it. If you used artist tape, it will release a little bit easier. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Just take your time, take a deep breath. Baby steps on that so you don't mess up your stitching. All right, now it is time to actually work on a closure. So we've done great, you guys, getting this beautiful journal. Look at it so far. I mean, there's the spine. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. That's a little crooked right there. I wonder if I can move that over. I don't know. We have to accept it for what it is. But anyway, this looks fantastic. I love it. So here is the front flap, and then this is the other one that's going to come over and be our closure. I wish you could feel this. I will put this in my Etsy shop. It feels so good with the double layer of cotton with that burlap in between, and also the interfacing actually adds a little something to it. So it's just delightful. So I was thinking we would go ahead, I have Velcro, know. You could use a button if you know how to do that. You could use a snap, actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and add ribbon to this one. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna open this all the way. Well, let me back up a second, hold on. Here's our closure, right? This closes right here. So I went ahead and I marked a spot right here where I'm gonna cut a hole. I am going to use my razor tool to do so. And I will go ahead and use this just to make sure I do it straight. And I'm gonna check it. Okay, now we don't want it to fray or anything like that, so I'm going to go get some fray check or fray stop and pop that on there. And I'm going to double check and make sure that it worked its way onto the other side. If not, nope, it didn't, so I'll just go ahead and put some on this side as well. That'll keep everything from fraying. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ribbon. I'm not quite sure how long I want this to be, so I'm going to be generous with it. Let's go ahead, see if we can get it through here. There it is. All right, we're going to pull that through. It just needs to be long enough to tie. So let's do it right there. That should be more than enough. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and we're going to trim this. All right, so that's going to get glued into place. But before we do that, we're going to glue another one into place. So we need to figure out, though, where we want that. So this is closing here. And then we want the other one to basically be at the same spot. I don't want to mess with my stitching here though, and I should have thought about that. So what would have been smart of me would be to create the hole a little further up so that I could do this one right here, right in between those stitches. I didn't do that, and that's okay. What we're gonna do is we'll just go ahead, we have our spot, and we'll just move it back here. But then when I tie, I'll just tie over here. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So let's just make sure we get enough of this. I think that should be plenty. Hopefully, let's take a little more just in case. You don't want to be shy with that, I'll tell you. All right, and so for decorative purposes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on here so we can make sure we get everything straight. And we've got this, and this is going to be, even though this isn't glued in place, maybe I should go ahead and glue it in place just so it doesn't shift on us. So let me do this, and we could just do it right here. Want to make sure it's straight. I feel like I need to move that up just a little bit. There we go. Okie dokie. All right, that looks good. Yeah, I might end up covering that with something. We'll see, we'll see. Let's go ahead and start by just cutting that, and then we'll decide from there. All right, I'm going to feed this through here. I think I could push it through with this little thing. There we go. So let's say that's like that. And then we do a little bow. That keeps it simple, but I do think it would look really cool with something here. Decided that we are gonna do it. I just think it'll be kind of neat. You know, level it up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my ruler in and about, not quite an inch, I'm going in with another cut for the ribbon. Let's get our fray check. We don't want to forget that. What would happen if? What would, oh, look at that. What would happen if we went all the way? Let me see, does that fit through there properly? It does, you guys. Check it out. Okay, so let's flip this over. I can't hardly believe it. This could get glued down right here, right? And then this one would be closing like this, and then this would be tying. I kind of like that, you guys. What do you think about that? I like it. So let's just do it. Since I like it, let's go ahead and do it. This was not planned, pretty spontaneous, but you know, I think it's gonna look really, really pretty. So I'm gonna commit to it, okay? So let's get this Fabri-Tac on here. Do it right to there. And get this on here. Now what I'm going to do, of course that's going to take a few seconds to dry. I'm going to come around this way. We're going to go ahead and go along this way. There we go, looking very nice. Okay, let's check it before we move. Oh yeah, looking great, y'all. Okay. And now before I add any more glue, I need to make sure this is going to line up, and it is. It's going to go out, it's going to go in this one and out this one. Okay, let's do it, my friends. Just make sure that we are in line. So we'll just do little by little and just keep testing it along the way. Put a little bit right there because we're going to feed this through here. Let me find my little stick again. Here we go. And then we're going to do it like this and make sure that this is not too tight. We'll pull back on that just a little bit. Give it plenty of room, right? So I thought what I would do is just grab some of this coordinating fabric. Well, it's matching fabric is what I should say. I'm going to tear some small pieces, and I'm going to see how it looks if we just sort of use these as patches. One could go here. You honestly wouldn't even notice, and I don't mind if you notice. I kind of like the rustic feeling of it if you do notice that it's a patch. But I like the way that it matches. I don't want anything too noticeable. I'd like it to be subtle. I don't mind if it's noticed, but I would like it to be subtle. So there's one there for that. What do you think about that? I don't think that's bad. Let's try it on a different angle. Let's see. Yeah, either way is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that into place. Spreading it out just so I don't get any obvious bleed through in you know, any one particular spot. I think that looks pretty. I'm happy with that. I have this blue flower, and no, it's not totally flat, right? But I gotta try it on for size. I just have to see how that looks. I mean, it kind of looks pretty, you guys. So hold on, I also have pink. Let's check out the pink one. Let's see. All right, there's the pink, and there's the blue. I like them both, though, I have to be honest. But if I come in with the pink, I could hit this on the edges with a little something just a little bit darker, too, so that it kind of, you know, matched the fabric a little bit better. Let's see what happens if I just touch the edges with this. All right, let's see how that did. Added something a little bit richer to it. What do we think of that, guys? You like it? Maybe not orange, but maybe just a little bit of gold. Let's see what happens if we do that here and there. Just on maybe the little edges that I missed with the other color. All right, let's check that out. Let's see how that looks now. What do you think of that? I think that looks really pretty. So let's go ahead and go with that one. I think that looks super nice. And I'll go ahead and glue that on with this Fabri-Tac here. All right, my friends, here is our completed project. I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. There's a lot of things that I did for the very first time on this project, and it makes me so happy that it came out as beautifully as it did. The blanket stitch was the first time I had ever done the blanket stitch, which is a lot of fun. So, and also, it was also the first time that I had ever done something like that with the ribbon, with cutting the hole in the cover and that sort of thing. So that was a lot of fun. So let's have a look. We're going to open it up, untie it. I wish you could feel it. It's just, it feels so lovely. And then we open up our cover. I would consider this to be a writing journal, although it could be a sketch journal. There are stationery pages in here, and there are a few scrapbook pages. For example, this is a scrapbook page. The rest of it, besides the few scrapbook pages that you see inside, are going to be nice stationery pages. And actually, while we're flipping through, let me go ahead and shorten this knot a little bit. There we go. I love the colors. I love the way it came out. I'm super happy with this project. I hope that you guys enjoyed playing along. I hope that you guys were able to make one as well. I hope that it was a good tutorial. I hope it was easy to follow. I try to break things down truly step by step so that you're not missing any pieces to the puzzle. And I'm really enjoying doing these tutorials because it's also pushing me out of my box, and I don't really think of myself as somebody who stays in a box, but we do kind of get into a certain routine, I feel like. And so doing new projects and learning new stitches and trying new things is always wonderful. And I hope that you are enjoying this journey as well. So here we are. You can see a lot of the stationery pages. So it's kind of plain as far as journals go, but that was intentional for this journal. And as I mentioned a few videos ago, as I'm doing these the series, either whether it's mixed media or particularly the journal and bookmaking, I'm not doing a lot of embellishing and things like that because I'm trying to keep it simple, clear, and concise so that you can follow along easily and not be distracted by pockets and belly bands and, you know, things like that. And then some of you truly do want and enjoy writing journals, just writing journals with no distractions inside. And so this would be handy for that. I will list this in my Etsy shop. I'll try to get that done ASAP. But I hope you enjoyed this. Oh, here's a little page I did some trimming, but I missed a little spot right here. There we go. And a little one right here. There we go. I also wanted to mention to you, if you choose to do a journal like this, I took a break. So I was working on it, and then I took a break and came back to it the next day to finish it up because it's more complex than, say, a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, right? And we did 7 signatures, and we do so many signatures so that when you do the fancy stitching on the spine, you can see it and appreciate it. You know, if you only had 3 signatures, it wouldn't have the same impact. So we do 7, and that gives us a lot to play with, right? But I just wanted to let you know that I did take a break from it, and you can do that too. And you know, I would have kept working on it and probably gotten it done in one day, but hubby came home from work, and so and then I felt like it was kind of nice to take a break from it, you know. because there was a lot of intricacies with this one, especially because I did the stitching around the edges, which, you know, wasn't necessarily, I could have zipped around it with my sewing machine again and been done with that. But I really wanted to add that extra special personal touch by doing that blanket stitch, and that was just a lot of fun for me to learn it. It was super easy stitch. So there we go. I mean, you know, nothing crazy in there, just a beautiful writing journal, and I hope you love it. Like I said, it'll be listed in my Etsy shop, and I appreciate you. So thanks for watching. See you soon.